Welcome to Life After Publishing. My name is Taisha Beasley, and I am the host of this amazing YouTube series. I will be taking the last Thursday of every month to post different interviews that I have with amazing authors to share their mission and their story behind their book. If you follow me on social media, you understand three things about your girl. I love all things God, all things family and friends, and all things business. I am about my business. So much so, I've been told to take several breaks, but I don't know how to do that, but that's a different show. But that is why I am so excited to talk to our special guest today, Brianna. She is also a mother, a wife, and a full-time entrepreneur. And I don't know about you, but it is such a breath of fresh air to speak to individuals who understand the struggles of life. And for me, it's always learning how to balance it all and keep joy. But Brianna has found a solution that I feel like is very real, very raw, and very authentic on how to maintain your joy in the midst of the storms. What I love about Brianna is that she is so transparent, so real, and so down to earth. You're gonna love how she takes the time to share with us her journey on how she discovered how to find joy in the midst of it all. And she's had a lot of situations where she's had to find joy. If you love what you see, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Also follow Brianna. Get her book. It is transformational. This is Life After Publishing. Happy to have you on here because your book was so amazing.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yes. I'm excited.
Yay! So a lot has happened since we last connected. A lot has happened. You have a new beautiful baby boy.
Yeah.
And you're into entrepreneurship, but a lot has changed in that space. So you're now a full-time entrepreneur, and you were telling me so is your husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how is things? So let's start there. I like to catch up. How is things with that? A new baby boy, your studio you have now. Tell us a little bit about that. What's going on?
It's very busy, but I can say it's fulfilling. Like I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So the studio, we're going into our third dance season.
Oh, wow.
So in the midst of me being pregnant, in the midst of a pandemic,
yes.
we've, survived and thrived through a pandemic. And now we're like 122 students is the goal. We're close to it.
Wow.
We just found out we won like the City of Gary's 4th of July parade. Our dance troupe won that.
That's so awesome.
I have two little boys, a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old, Paul and Braden.
Oh my gosh.
My husband's a full-time entrepreneur as well. He has this photography company. And it's just busy. Life is busy, but it's fulfilling. And I think it's growing me even more and stretching me even more. But it's all good stuff.
It is, because like I was telling you before we started rolling, like it's just, you have a different presence. I like to call it executive presence. And that comes with just being in the game, working on the things that God has called you to do. So that kind of brings me to my first question. When you wrote your book, it was about what, 2 years ago?
2 years, yeah.
Okay, so tell us, before we get into like why you wrote the book, tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, so Dance with the Storms, I just feel like in my life, God has always causing me to be very strong. And I've actually gotten like a prophetic word recently about like all of those tests and trials. But in those seasons, I just knew that I had to have faith and it was going to pay off. So it's basically telling like all of my stories, the trials, the tribulations, the hard times, the good times, and actually how to like persevere. And like, even though we go through challenging times in life, you can persevere and it makes you better, it makes you stronger. And God, even though it might seem like God might not be in those seasons, he's still with you. He's still walking you through those seasons, and you'll come out better at the end of it.
Yeah. So that was a really good summary. But I feel like when I was reading your book, it was so meaty. Like you shared so many intimate and personal things from like, I like the part where you talked about dating and that whole process of like, you know, being a Christian and dating and the things you struggle with. Like you were so honest. And so with that honesty and being very transparent, like what is the real message behind the book? Like if you could sit down and really share that message, what do you think it would be?
The core message would be trust God with every area of your life, because when I look back at all of those journal entries that we added in the book, from the time I was 6 years old to being 19 at Howard University, to, you know, even being married, it's like I see God with me even in those hard times, even in those times where I'm like, God, I want to be a virgin still, but look, I'm horny.
I didn't want to say that, but I was thinking like, you were very honest. Yeah, and I was reading like, I'm going to put it in here because you want it. So you were okay with sharing that.
Yeah, I think as we're humans, even though we're Christians, like the world is talking about what they're going to talk about. We have to be honest and open and transparent, because that's how people get set free.
Yes.
And those were my journal. That's where I was at that time in life when I was writing those journal entries. Like, Lord, let me stop humping this man. Like that was what I was going through.
I love it. See, I love when people are just so real and honest. So that was, and I feel like that is very freeing. Yes. And I know this series specifically is about a surrendered life. And in the book, there was a lot of times where you had to stop, pause, because you was about to get snazzy. And you was like, God, I surrender this situation to you. Yeah. What was one particular story in the book that you feel like really showed that surrender?
I think the most challenging thing that I've ever experienced in life is losing my mom. Yeah. And she's all throughout the book because she's all throughout me. And in that time where I actually had to, you know, it was like hard. So I signed a lease on the dance studio, and then like within 2 weeks of me signing the lease and fulfilling or pursuing that dream, she has a stroke and all of that. And now I'm at the hospital with her, and all of this might not be in the book, but the essence of just being challenged and being, you know, pulled and struggling is in that season. And then she ends up passing away. But the faith that she gave me to have, you know, faith to know that she's with God, and then to even know that God is going to help me through that season, that was important. And that showed me that God is with me in every area of my life, like through the trials, through the good times, you know. And I would even say that my whole family, like my father, my sister, brother, our spouses, our children, we grew in grace through grief. Oh. And even though we're still grieving, it's not debilitating. It's not taking us out. Like I'm still able to talk about my mom, and we, you know, just had a party for my nephew. If mom was here, would she have gotten in the pool? Girl, yeah, you know she would have. So, you know, it's life, you know, life there. So that's the biggest thing. I think that was the biggest challenge that I've, you know, experienced so far in my young 31 years of life.
I know, because you talk so much about your mom. Like you opened the book with stories about your childhood. So definitely being able to just maybe leave some of her legacy in writing, like that had to be like just so huge for you.
Yeah, I kept telling her while I was writing the book, because she was still alive, Mom, you should read it. Mom, you should read it. And this is before she had the stroke, because I started the process in 2019. She was perfectly healthy, fine. She was like, no, I want to read it when it's all done. So she never got a chance to read it. But I just, you know, she's a part of me. Like, I just laugh thinking about, like, the life lessons that she taught me. And, you know, how we're still, like, you know, leaving a legacy for her and even her grandchildren, because I had a son that she never met. My sister just had a daughter that she never met, but they still are a part of her.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I know. So how do you feel like your book has created impact? In what ways? Like, this is, you know, talking about life after publishing. So maybe, I guess one could say just the legacy aspect of it, but I know your heart was for the generation after you. So how have you seen your book play a part of that?
Yeah, definitely. So I have so many young women who are just saying, like, the book has encouraged them to know, like, God is with them even in their single state, even in their, you know, career, because we talk about me, leaving a turning down a job to come back home and God just working that out. So even me taking a position now, I'm a coach for a high school dance team.
Wow.
So giving them the book and then just, I just gave it to them. So hopefully they'll read it.
Yes, they will.
They're teenagers. But I know that it's things that like jewels that will help them as they go to college or help them even as they're struggling with times, currently in their lives. So just a lot of young women just saying like, hey, I know that if you got through this season, like God's not a respecter of person. I can get through this as well.
Yeah. That is so good. I love that your heart was always, again, just about being open. Because if I always tell people, I was in a situation recently, and I always was like, if someone would have just been honest with me, just going into motherhood and wife, like as a wife, there's going to be days where you're not always feeling your man. There's going to be days he ain't feeling you. Me and my husband joke about this now. I don't know if you've seen this on Instagram where there was like, name a person or somebody that you love, but they irritate you and then they turn the camera towards their kids.
In the backseat.
So like, we're mothers, we're wives, but those people can definitely become like bothersome. But a lot of times in the church, we don't talk about those things. We don't talk about being a mother, what that really looks like biblically, being a wife, and how to handle different stresses. So like, you have to do a second edition of this book in some regard. Are you thinking about it?
I am. I do. It's so much has happened, so it has to be and I'm still journaling. So it has to be like a part 2 or some, extended version because life has just changed.
And
so
you're
quickly.
A different person.
I am. I definitely am a different person.
Yeah.
Like being a wife, being a mom, being a full-time entrepreneur, like definitely changes you. And I think it's for the better. Like dealing with all of these parents at the dance studio, and it just gives you a tenacity, a resilience. Surviving the pandemic.
Yes.
that's a book in itself.
That's a whole book. Everybody got books. Everybody got books from the pandemic.
Yeah.
But yes, no, that is. But I feel like during the pandemic, you thrived. Now you do, you teach courses on how entrepreneurs can get grants and things of that nature. How did that happen? How did that come about?
So I feel like God had this
in
the making. And so when I attended Howard, like, I went on faith and prayer. Like my dad worked in the steel mill. My mom was in the school system. So they couldn't afford for me to go to Howard. So I told them if they could help me like the first year, then they'd never have to help me again. So I graduated debt-free through scholarships. And I would search every Saturday morning. I would just search for scholarships, apply. And it got to the point where I was living on scholarships. So when the pandemic happened, Holy Spirit just dropped it in me like, you got the skills, you know what to do. So I started applying for grants the same way I applied for scholarships. And then God just showed out like since August of 2020 to current, we've received over $60,000 in grants for the studio, for Breeze Dance Place.
Wow.
And still more to come because I've been applying and now I'm teaching other business owners how to apply for grants because it's a skill set that if you want the money, you will learn it. But if you can hire me to do it. But
we can hire you.
Yeah, to write grants.
I'm gonna have
teach.
To write a little note about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a whole separate business now.
Wow.
I'm teaching people. I was recently featured on Joseph Business School, teaching
I saw that.
It was 350 people.
Yeah. How many?
All over the world. People from Nigeria were on there, across the United States. I just had calls with people from Texas and everywhere. And I'm like, God, that's God. Yes. Because I just was like, trying to stay in Indiana, do what I need to do. I never thought that I would teach people how to find money.
Wow.
But that's where we are right now.
Yeah. I love how you did that in college. You found money for school. And it's amazing how God gives you a skill set. And he started opening doors with that skill set. And now, like you said, you're doing something you never thought you would be doing. And it also helped you with your business. Yeah. So one of the things I like to ask all the time and I talk about is like having a book, how it really helps position you and open doors. In what ways do you feel like since you released your book, it's positioned you or opened some doors?
Yeah, I think every time I speak, now I have the opportunity to, have the book as a product. People see me as an authority in the dance industry. And I really appreciate that because I'm not just teaching dance, because dance just isn't dance. It teaches life lessons. You learn discipline, perseverance, and that's what I'm always teaching my kids at the studio. So now I have the opportunity to have a physical product to show them this is where dance has taken me. And it's not just about dancing, but it's about, hearing God tell you what to do. But it boils down to that. And that's how I experience joy, is through dance. So that's my equivalent is dance, joy. And now I have a physical product to present as I speak, as I go out to different trade shows. It's at the studio. And then for me, it's a ministry tool. So even though, the goal is to sell books, I give away a lot of books because at the end of the day, it's going to touch people's lives and grow them in their walk with Christ.
And I feel like sometimes it's a form of obedience, just doing something that that God is calling you to do. And I was just sharing this with a sister of mine that I feel like as a believer, you're going to have two kind of sectors. You're going to have that ministry calling, and then you're going to have that thing you do to get paid.
Right.
And a lot of times that ministry calling, it pulls on you a lot. You pour out, but that's where you feel fulfilled. And then that thing you do to get money, sometimes when people say, are you an entrepreneur? I'll be like, I own a publishing company. I'm a publisher. Because sometimes identifying with entrepreneurship, it's glorified. You know what I mean?
Nowadays,
Now, so it's just this is, I feel called to publish books. I feel called to have my own company. But, I really like the ministry aspect. And sometimes writing a book is ministry.
It was very cathartic is the word, I believe, cleansing for me to just go back and look on the faithfulness of God, because that's what it boils down to. In paying for college, in getting out of those relationships that weren't healthy. And now I have a husband who's a believer. We can raise our children in a godly environment. Even believing God to build a house, everything is the faithfulness of God. And it helps me to just know that if he got me through all of those times during that season, what is, the rent for a dance studio? That's nothing to him. What is, whatever it is nothing to him. He just wants us to believe him and trust in him. So
that is so good. And I think that's a good way to kind of leave people on that note. So we're coming out of the pandemic, but hopefully we don't get sent back in.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully. But your book talks a lot about the faithfulness of God, but joy is a lost art. How can you encourage people in this season and even difficult seasons to find joy?
Yeah, I would say find something that you love to do that brings you joy, and do that. And then what I did, and I need to get back to doing it, I would just write down okay, somebody paid for my food at Start, whatever little thing that thankfulness jar. Little things that remind you of God's faithfulness. Hey, we were able to pay all of our bills on time. That's God being faithful. Just write that down, and then once in a while, just open up those little pieces of paper and see, in 2015, God did this. And it just recounts, the things that you're thankful for. And that brings me, gratitude to God and joy. Look, we got through this season, even though, people are struggling right now, and that's, understood, but some people are thriving too.
That's true.
Right? So just looking on the things that God has done, that brings me joy. And then too, not just being so focused on me, but how I can bless others, that brings me joy. Because when I see the gifts that I gave my dance team, they were excited about that, their young kids, that's me pouring into them, and that brings me joy, and that gives me satisfaction. So just sowing seeds into other people. That'll bring you joy, and it get you not so focused on what you're going through in that current moment.
Yeah, that is so true. I feel like entrepreneurship is all about service.
It is.
And when you feel like it's about you in some way, I feel like you start to sink. It reminds me of, was it Paul or Peter who was walking on water? Peter. So Peter, when he walked on water, he didn't start to sink until he started to focus on himself. So I feel like there's an element where in business, because it used to be like when, not that you're chasing money, but you know those seasons where you like, oh my gosh, I need money. Don't it feel like money just move away from you? You're like, what is happening? But the moment you be like, okay, I'm going to do this. You know, it is my calling, it is my job, but I'm going to pour into other people and serve. It seems like money, like the floodgates of money and opportunity
just pursue you.
It really does.
You have to chase it.
So like if I ever have an opportunity to teach on entrepreneurship, like that's what I'm going to lead with is make sure that you're like, especially as believers, like how are you advancing the kingdom of God with this service? And so when you focus on that, I feel like God will always take care of you.
Yep.
And you don't have to chase money and pursue money.
Yep. It'll follow you.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing with me. Is there anything you want to encourage people to do in this season, or anything you want to encourage for your book? You know, getting the book, of course, you got to get the book, but
get the book. It's not just for women. It's not just for those who are interested in dance. Anybody who feels like they have had challenging times in their life, this book shows you that God is faithful, that he's a restorer, that he'll bring you out. But I would say that everybody has a book in them. So definitely contact November Media Publishing, because you have a book in you. You just have to sit down, and you might need the guidance. And she helped me so much.
Oh my gosh, because it took us how long, girl?
It wasn't, to me, it wasn't long.
It wasn't a long time.
It was January to August, I think. But I was just very, what's the word?
You was a stickler. You wanted the anal. I was trying not to be pro, you know. But you wanted what you wanted.
Yeah.
And that's something I believe in when we're helping bring stories to life. Like, you have to love the book. Yeah. I don't care if it's the cover. If you like, I like it, but I'm like, oh, well, we going back to the drawing board, because like you have to stand behind it.
And I love it. I love the process. It helped me see what was on the inside of me. You helped coach me to be more creative in my writing. So that just brought out a whole nother level. But I would say everybody has a book in them, and your book can definitely change someone else's life, their perspective. So don't be fearful about taking that step, taking the time to actually just sit down and write.
Yay, that's so awesome. Thank you again for being here. I'm a toucher. I'm You're like touching, and are you good? Okay.
Yeah, good. I got kids.
Okay.
Everything.
So yeah, thank you for being here with us and sharing your story and life beyond publishing.
Thanks for having me.